Vladimir Putin and Russia, or otherwise known as the Great Russian Bear. One of the things that Russia is famous for is the Russian circus and the Russian circus bears. But Russia also identifies as the Great Bear, right? Because it sees itself as powerful, strong, indomitable, and dangerous when pushed. Not something to take lightly. Unfortunately, because of economics with the country for a very long time now, there's not a lot to work with there. They're a remarkably poor nation, or at least the people who live there are remarkably poor as a result of economics and politics and all sort of stuff. So the Great Russian Bear, for the most part these days and for a long time, is more like the Great Russian Circus Bear. So a shadow of its former self and basically dancing to the tune of the, weaker, smaller master because they're all locked up and where can they go, right? Yeah. So let's get on with the charts. All right now, and this is our Great Russian Zaddie, Vladimir Putin. So there are some interesting things about him. There are some terrifying things about him, but there are also some interesting things about him. So let me start with this chart, and then we'll kind of add stuff as we go along. Okay, so Vlad is a Libra. He has the sun in Libra with the moon in Gemini. So this is somebody who is more comfortable in cerebral realms. He's a thinker more than a doer. He is a strategist and a planner more than a foot soldier and a combat person. And I know he does jujitsu or whatever the martial art is he practices. But at the end of the day, with a Libra-Gemini combination, you're looking at somebody who does not like to get their hands dirty. So most of their efforts and activities will be focused or geared towards things that allow them to do it cleanly, which, since he's got a reputation as a bit of a murderer, cough, cough, when he dispatches his enemies or silences them, he will also do it in the most bloodless, clean way possible. So, the whole stringing people up and hanging them off balconies and all sort of thuggish things that we think of when we think of like the mafia, right? The old tales of the mafia thugs. That's not his thing at all. So, poison or accidentally finding yourself falling off a balcony, from very, very high heights, this sort of thing. Things that allow you to do it cleanly and neatly without getting your hands dirty. That's more his way. And the less physical contact, the better. So, there you go. Now, he is Scorpio rising. And he does have Venus and Scorpio in the first house. Now, this is interesting and notable because Scorpio rising tends to give a person a very intense sort of brooding quality, right? So you never really feel like they're looking at you. You always kind of feel like they're sizing you up to see if they can fit you in a suitcase or on a dinner plate. Or trying to search out the secrets in your soul. Like you always feel like their eyeballs are boring into you, burning holes in your deep, dark closet of anxieties. But the other thing too with Scorpio rising is along with or outside of that intense presentation, Scorpio rising does not guarantee to give you an attractive appearance. So the definition of attractiveness are symmetrical features, right? There are specific markers that define what's considered universally as beautiful or attractive. Scorpio rising will not give you those things. However, admittedly, you gotta give it to him. For a guy who's 60 something at this point, he's in good shape and he's actually still attractive. I think he's more attractive now than he was when he was younger. So what would do that if it's not the rising sign? Well, his Venus in the first house will do that. So he has Venus and Scorpio in that first house, which is what gives him that ineffable sex appeal, that zoom in Zaddie, right? And given everything we know about him, like Ted Bundy, who was a serial killer, rapist, who was also a sadist and sadistically tortured his victims before they died, because Ted Bundy liked to get his hands dirty. Apparently, Vladimir Putin has a reputation of being a bit of, a dangerous person. Maybe even possibly a little psychotic or psychopathic, according to the people in Russia who've dealt with him in the military or done, tests, psychological tests and stuff. who obviously cannot come out and say that, his psychological battery in the military indicated that he's a psychopath, because, he is the president and they'd like to stay alive tomorrow. Um, but yeah, he's dangerous. He's dangerous in a scary way, not a sexy way, a scary way. But with Venus and Scorpio rising like this, like Ted Bundy, he gives off that quality that makes him attractive to people in spite of all the other obvious shortcomings, like the fact that you could wake up dead the next day. I'm just saying. Okay, all right. So, one of the other things that's interesting is as we go through the chart, and we're going to examine the chart a little more closely in a second, but as we go through the chart, he has a singular final dispositor. Now, the final dispositor is when you take all of your planets and you do this like ring around the rosy sort of game. So, for instance, his sun in Libra is disposited by Venus, because Venus is the natural ruler of Libra. Venus is in the sign, in his chart, is in the sign Scorpio. Okay, so the ruler of Scorpio is Mars. So Venus is the Venus in Scorpio is disposited by that Mars in Sagittarius, and Mars in Sagittarius is disposited by Jupiter, because Jupiter rules Sagittarius. Jupiter is in Taurus, which is disposited by Venus in Libra, in Scorpio, which brings us right back to Mars and Sagittarius. So the final dispositor, when you do all the planets like this, they all come back to the same place. And the final dispositor in his chart, because he has one, becomes Mars in Sagittarius. So his Mars is extremely dominant in his nature, and a very, very sensitive point you have to keep an eye on, and something you really have to keep in the back of your mind, because Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, rising sun, all of these things are there, but there's this dominant force woven through all of that for him, which is the final dispositor, which is Mars. So this is a absolutely Martian or Aryan character, right? So all the things we associate with Mars, we're definitely going to see as dominant characteristics for him, and that is important to know. Now, his Mars is in Sagittarius, which is, thank God, because he's got some heavy planets here. It's a little bit later, so he should actually have a fine sense of humor. Mars in Sagittarius, Mars dominant and final dispositor in the chart, is also going to make him a bit of an outdoorsman, which we've seen some suggestion of. It's also going to give him a fine sense of humor, believe it or not. Unfortunately, with all the other combinations in his chart, his humor is the kind of thing where he laughs when you do something that really puts you at a disadvantage. So I would imagine he would like slapstick comedy where people are getting hurt, and that's where you're getting your laughs from. I know it sounds awful, doesn't it? Or he's like that person who just, he doesn't, Scorpios, they don't really have a sense of humor. um, or he's that person that, doesn't really find anything you're saying charming or cute or funny until you do something that really messes yourself up. Like you literally did it to yourself. Oh man, that was stupid. Then he'll laugh, and he'll laugh heartily, which is pretty interesting. So slapstick comedy and, laughing at people when they do themselves in is pretty much his two go-tos for humor. Now, with Mars and Sagittarius intercepted in the second house, and this gets a little weird because interceptions are their own special kind of thing, right? So with his final dispositor intercepted, the first thing that tells us is that this is not going to be obvious. So only people who are close to him or really familiar with him would know about this strong Mars nature dominating his character. Now, if you met him on the street, he'd probably, with that Libra-Gemini combination, right, and that Venus coming up in the first house, he could probably charm the socks off of anybody. He could probably charm the socks off the devil. He would literally be the kind of person you would love to take home to meet your parents, or introduce to your sister or your brother. Because like Ted Bundy, and I don't know why I keep using Ted Bundy because they don't have the same charts, so understand that. But it's the same kind of effect where he's very socially graceful, he's very pleasant, he's very nice, he's very charming. You would never in a million years know that this man is capable of brutality, and aggression and, hurting you, because these are all classic Mars things. But it's there. But because that Mars as final dispositor is intercepted, it's not out in the open or obvious. So interceptions are a little weird to work with in a chart. They're very interesting, but that's also sometimes what it does. It kind of disguises the nature of that planet and makes it not so readily visible. Um, so there's that. And so I used this picture because I really wanted to drive home a point to to reaffirm what I'm talking about with this Mars dominant kind of behavior, this aggressive Mars thing. Like the thing with Mars, not Aries, but Mars. Mars is the planet, it is the soldier, it is the planet of combat, domination, conquest, roar, that's Mars. Because what Mars can't conquer, Mars will just destroy because there can be only one. So look at this picture again, right? Notice the body language in the picture, right? So he's basically at a conference, but he has his arms spread out as far as they can go, right? Literally establishing his territory at that desk and making it bigger than it needs to be. He's talking. He doesn't need that much physical space, but it's a physical thing where we're trying to announce and make sure everyone knows that we are large and in charge, Marge. We are here and in the room. So the other thing is it's a very defiant, aggressive posture, because this is the kind of posture you would take if you were about to leap over something, right? So when people take this position, typically what they're doing is they're really establishing their authority and dominance in the situation, right? And letting you know they're not to be played with, right? So think about any time you have ever seen somebody assume this position in a conversation that you've been part of, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, right? That's that Mars, that final dispositor Mars in this chart that we're looking at. Graceful, charming, articulate. He's all sorts of lovely things, but that body language talks about, like literally says it all when it comes to his Mars operating through his entire character and nature. So his Mars doesn't flip on and off when he's angry. His Mars is there simmering and cooking all the time. Everything is always about establishing his dominance and authority all the time, because there can be only one. All right, now, now that we established that, now look at his face. His face, he's clearly listening to someone and he's giving them a chance to speak, because that's the look, right? And he's making space to hear them, actually hear them and process what they're saying. He's being respectful and giving them an opportunity to say something, and he's trying to meet them halfway and hear what they're saying. That expression on his face is receptive. It's very specific and receptive, and we've seen it before. We know that face. Put your hands over the screen right now and just cover up everything except his face, right? And if you look at his fresh face, you can see it. He's literally listening, being receptive. But then move your hands away and look at the body language. That body language, even though he's receptive and listening, that body language is letting you know by post, oh no, thou shalt not mess with me. I am in charge here. That's that Mars. So I thought that was pretty damn interesting. Now, some other things that I thought were interesting about his chart is his Mars. So I don't typically use transit tunes on these charts. We're getting plenty of information otherwise, but these were very specific and very, very prominent in his chart. So his Mars trines the trans-Neptunian Zeus, and it opposes Vulcanus. So I want to show you this. So his Mars is here, okay, and it is over here. It is. I know this chart is so tiny. I'll have a bigger one in a second. Just bear with me for a second, okay? Come here. So we have Zeus there, and Vulcanus is right here. So Mars, his Mars, trines Zeus, which is also conjunct Pluto and the midheaven. Now, Zeus refers to tremendous strength or power, and as well as authority and leadership in this lifetime. At the top of the chart is the thing that is the most visible to you, to the public around you, and it is also the level that we can aspire to or attain in this lifetime, right? So in this lifetime, that strong Mars of his, like in sympathetic relationship to Pluto and Zeus, means that absolute domination is his driving goal in life. right? He must be in charge of it all. So no matter what he started out as in life, where he was heading was straight to the top in absolute authority over everyone else. There would be nothing else would be acceptable. And because it's a trine, it would have come easily to him. So he would have advanced those ranks into positions of leadership much smoother and easier than somebody else might have, you know. And obviously, it's working for him because he's been the president of Russia for what, 20 years now, 2 decades. Like, holy crap. They don't have royalty, but he may as well be king at this point. Okay, now his Mars, this final dispositor Mars, right, which also, by the way, is the traditional ruler of Scorpio, so it's got double emphasis here. All right, his final dispositor Mars also opposes Vulcanus. Now, what's interesting about that is that Mars opposed Vulcanus in his chart would indicate, because remember, he doesn't like getting his hands dirty. That Libra Gemini, Venus rising, he is not trying to get his hands dirty. Please, madam, please. But with Mars opposed Vulcanus, there's a tremendous amount of physical power at the ready that needs to be discharged periodically. So, and Vulcanus is well, Vulcanus is about deformities and literally getting your hands into the muck and dirt of things to make things happen. So he is not afraid to get physical if absolutely necessary. That's kind of where this jujitsu is coming in, because it gives him an opportunity to do physical combat or physical interaction, like aggressive, domineering interaction with people, um, without risking his life, because you know his jujitsu instructor and or judo partners, whatever it is he's doing, like nobody's going to kill a president, like it's not going to happen. But we can't get away from our essential natures. He still needs to be able to discharge that need to physically dominate, with a worthy opponent, and that's how he does it. Unlike other people who get their jollies like being dominant over weaker people, right? Like these guys who need to choke their girlfriends out during intercourse. Like, what the hell is that about, right? Like, dude, I don't know. Something else scare me. Um, but rather than going after weaker partners, which is really no conquest or competition, like there's no victory there. Like, ooh, you took candy from a baby. Ooh, that's so. Ooh, no, like an actual competition worthy opponent or a contestant, so that he can really like use force and really battle is what he needs on a fairly regular basis to discharge that energy. But he's the president, like nobody's going to do this. But in sport, he's able to get that out of his system. So I thought that was interesting. There's more there with those trans-Neptunians. We'll try and revisit that um, later in the video. So, but for now, that Mars, man, this is the planet to watch with this guy, because whether anybody wants to admit it or not, or see it or not, this guy is Mars, 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 and all the things that go with Mars. All right, so let's move on and take a look at the next slide. Remember that thing I said about Russians being very into fitness and health and having good, strong, healthy bodies and natural lifestyles? Well, I don't remember what, I don't think anybody really knew what this about. But at some point, I was about to call him Zaddie. At some point, President Putin decided that he needed to do a photo op to show his people that, he was very fit and virile, strong like bull, powerful like Russian bear. So he did this photo op where he was riding bare chested out in the country on a horse and all sorts of stuff like that. It was an interesting thing, caught the entire world by surprise, and the internet just had a field day with these pictures. Alrighty, so this is the chart of Vladimir Putin, and I'm not going to get into the specifics, Sun conjunct Saturn, sesququadrate this. Now, I mean, I can if you want me to, but I'm going to try and keep this video under an hour. So we're just going to get right into the meat of it. Vladimir Putin has a Sun-Saturn conjunction in Libra. It is making a wide trine to the Moon in Gemini. This is a man who does not like to get his hands dirty. So while we know he has a reputation for being lethal, and it is well deserved, I'm not completely convinced this man is not psychopathic. And there are some suggestions from military reports for his psych profiles in Russia or the KGB that there are some behaviors that were interesting, which are completely in keeping with what we have profiled as psychopaths here. So That is a very real possibility. We may be dealing with a psychopath here. Um, a well restrained and self-moderated one, but a psychopath nonetheless. So let's thank God for self-discipline, right? Okay, so with that Sun Saturn conjunction, he's a rules person, and he absolutely has a very strict and rigid expectation that people will do what they're supposed to do and follow the rules as they are given to them. He also will not have authority challenged. If you want to get on his bad side really quick, and I mean really quick and permanently, challenge his authority. And we've seen this, but I don't think people realize like just how deep this sensitive point runs with him. Like when I say don't challenge his authority, it's the same thing as don't poke the bear. The bear will win. You will be sorry. Because it's for him, this is a big sore spot, and will never get better. So you better do what you're told and do what you're supposed to do, and don't challenge him, or specifically challenge his authority, or you, oh my God. Ooh, right? Okay, so with a moon in Gemini, he is glib, he's charming, he's social, he can talk about 1,000 things all at once. He enjoys the company of people who are articulate and bright and are not bores, B-O-O-R-S. He likes people who are interesting and can offer really good conversation, that are light on their feet, mentally speaking, right? Very socially agile. He does not like people who have a profound, overwhelming sense of importance. So if you take yourself too seriously, he's going to make a mockery of you, because that will be entertainment for him. Also, you might be an expert in your field, but if you're a big, stuffy, full of yourself expert in your field, and that's the only thing you can talk about, he's not going to want to have a conversation with you either. And he's not going to have a lot of respect for you. Moon in Gemini likes people who are mentally flexible, that can, keep up. And with him, a large part of it is because he also doesn't have a lot of time. Now, the thing that's interesting is with the Sun, Saturn in Libra, and that Moon in Gemini is he has to take things in small bites. You would think with the Sun, Saturn conjunction Libra that he's able to focus at great length on things, and he kind of sort of is. Like he is tenacious. When he starts something, his commitment is rock solid to death. Like he's not moving. His commitments are ironclad. However, with that Moon in Gemini, when it comes to information sourcing, which he's also very good at, and just things around him in general and mental processes, he needs to do things in small bites, and often he'll do 3 or 4 things at the same time. So he could easily be entertaining 4 or 5 ideas or problems, or a couple of problems and a joke and a comedy, and working on, what color to paint the wall, literally all at the same time. So he has multiple tracks running in his head at any given time, which is also probably why he has a really low tolerance for people who just go on and on and on and on and on, and never change the subject and never actually offer anything interesting after the first 5 minutes. So he likes bites of things. Now, right, information and information sourcing. So the other thing is he's got Mercury on the fixed star Spica in the 12th house. Now, the 12th house, remember, is the house of mental health. 6th house is physical health. 12th house is mental health. With Mercury conjunct Spica in the 12th house, one of the things that I would look for is he should be an absolute genius in terms of reading people's mental health. So he can spot mental health issues or secrets from a mile away that nobody else is catching. I would expect him to be a very well-read, very literate person, and maybe a bit of a writer himself. So there's something about communications or oration, or writing, that's very near and dear to him, and also is very meritorious or success-worthy. I would be really surprised if he's not a poet in his spare time. Can you imagine Vladimir Putin, the poet? Once upon a time, upon the great Russian bear that I love so much. Anyway, sorry. So there's that. Now, with that Mercury in Libra in the 12th house conjunct Spica, and that Moon in Gemini in the 8th house, and that Sun, Saturn request at 11th, 12th house, blah, blah, blah. And the Scorpio rising. So with his chart in total, one of the things that I would also look for is that he's very good at sourcing gossip, specifically gossip about other people. He loves salacious details about other people's secrets. And he's very good at rooting them out, mostly because he doesn't actually do it himself. Other people bring it to him. He inspires that kind of sharing of information with him. Um, so, and I'm sure he's got really big, serious, embarrassing dirt on everybody because that's what he does. It's entertainment for him, right? And again, he likes things in bites. So people are able to bring him that kind of interesting information and corroborate it, like prove this, you'll know this is not a joke. This is really blah, blah, blah. Um, will also curry higher favor with him. So people have a motivation to bring him these things, which makes his life a lot easier. Now, he has Zeus, Pluto, conjunct the midheaven at the top of the chart. Mercury is sextile, those planets. So that also this information sourcing, this gossip sourcing, this deep dark secret kind of, what's in that closet, what's in the drawer. Let me go take a peek over here while no one's looking. That is one of the things that absolutely helps him or is supportive of his ambitions, which in his case is absolute total authority. And that should frighten you because it frightens me. He has Zeus and Pluto in the midheaven conjunct the midheaven, and this means that from a very early age, no matter what his station in life, his primary goal in life was to be absolute authority and in power over other people. He had to be the absolute top dog. And remember, we talked about that Mars. Now it's a dominating characteristic that, or a characteristic of domination that weaves itself through his entire nature. And this combined with this desire to be, and this drive, literally life goal, this drive to be the absolute top authority in charge of everyone else in his life is pretty frightening. Because no matter what he did, even if he was just in charge of the local, garbage dump, he would work on being the big boss. The fact that he is the president of a very large country and in charge of the military and has kept power for 20 years because he's not letting anybody else have it, that should tell you all you need to know right there because he's definitely living his chart. All right. Okay. Yeah. Oh, baby. Okay. He has also the moon. I'm sorry, not the moon. Venus. Venus in Scorpio in the first house. And we talked about how, he's not necessarily an actually attractive man, but he's certainly photogenic. That's that Venus rising, right? And it's also Poseidon on the sun. We'll talk about that in a second. But also, Venus and Scorpio rising, or in the first house for anybody, is going to make people sexy. Oh, they're so sexy. But with his character and his general nature, because I'm literally convinced this guy's not all there in the wrong ways. I'm telling you, this man is a scary person. With that Venus and Scorpio in the first house making him sexy. Oh, hello, Zaddie. Um, it makes it even more terrifying because now he becomes a character like Ted Bundy, the serial killer rapist, the sadistic serial killer rapist here in the United States, was and still is, attractive to women. So he's been blessed with this gift that makes him appealing to other people, even though he's clearly dangerous and sinister. Now, you wouldn't know that to meet him on the street because that Venus rising on the chart in the first house of the chart and all of this air, Libra, Gemini air in his chart, he's going to come off as, and the intercepted Mars, he's going to come off as so gracious and so charming and so lovely. And oh my God, what a nice young man. I'd like you to meet my mother. Oh, I have a daughter I'd like to introduce you to. My gay cousin would love you. Um, Ted Bundy, man, I'm telling you, Ted Bundy, charming as the devil. You be ready to introduce him to your family members. And underneath all of that, beat somebody who's perfectly capable of chopping you up in little itty bitty pieces and serving it to the dogs. Um, or putting you on a plate and serving you a Sunday dinner. But that's a whole other conversation. So there you go. So when you see people with Venus rising in their chart, understand they're going to have a lot of sex appeal, especially with Scorpio. Um, and that's not the whole picture. That's part of the picture, and that because that makes them so attractive, it's even more important to kind of take a step back, take a deep breath, cleanse the mental palate, and reassess what you're actually dealing with, because that level of attractiveness or appeal can be very deceiving, only because we allow ourselves to be deceived by our hormones. Now, with Mars, which is the dominant factor through his entire character and nature, that Mars is everything we need to know about him. Okay, so Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio, which you may or may not use. If you're using modern rulerships, you're going to go with Pluto. Um, If you're using both rulerships, traditional and modern, you're going to use Pluto and Mars. But Mars is the original ruler of Scorpio, so this is like double emphasis on this Mars in his chart. Luckily, it's intercepted. So Mars in Sagittarius is going to make him an outdoorsman, a fitness fanatic, very physically active, and just with a very good sense of humor. A twisted one, but a good one. And also, too, with Mars in Sagittarius, they periodically need to get out and take long walks. They need to stretch their boundaries and territories, which he appears to be doing with Ukraine right now. So he's bored. He needs a challenge. Mars needs a challenge. And that Sagittarius wants him to push the boundaries, right? Let's see what's over there. What's in their backyard? That's Mars in Sagittarius. And with that dominant Mars in his chart, without challenges, personal challenges to keep him occupied. Like, I don't know, maybe we can get a GoFundMe set up and get him a girlfriend because he clearly needs something to keep him occupied. Or maybe he's fighting with a girlfriend. She's not paying attention to him, and that's why he's doing this. But Mars in Sagittarius often needs to get out and stretch their legs, right, to burn off some of this energy and to expand their territories. Unfortunately for us, he is a global leader of a major country or nation. So for him, stretching his legs and expanding his territory literally means expanding his territory. Right. Okay. Now, he also will fare better in later life than he did in early life. I don't know that much about him in respect. I should probably look it up, but I don't have a lot of time. So if you know, please add it in the comments below. But Jupiter in Taurus typically fares better after midlife. Jupiter, and he's got Jupiter retrograde. So the problem with Jupiter retrograde to begin with is you have to make your own luck in life. Nothing comes easy for you. Nobody assists you. Like, you know, every opportunity you have comes with twice the amount of work compared to other people. And this will continue through most of his life. Money would have been a real issue, or financial security, feeling valued would have been a real issue very early on in his life. And this is something that he would have been working very hard to fix or correct inside himself, that feeling of deprivation, either in terms of being valued or having things of value. So in later life, of course, you know, he would become much more invested in financial security and also things of luxury. I'm telling you, I don't know what this is about, but I'm telling you, I really believe that this guy has a huge thing for art and culture. The other reason I say that is because this Jupiter, right, is interacting with that Venus and Scorpio in the first house. And again, we've got all of this Libra, right, dispositing that Venus. I would be really curious to see what his art collection looks like. Because he loves beautiful things, but more than just beautiful things, because it's not enough to have a beautiful girlfriend or wife. It's not that kind of beautiful things. It's literally culture, art and culture. So he is the sophisticated savage, as it were. Or, you know, the well-cultured sociopath. Okay. Now he has Uranus in Cancer, and that Uranus in Cancer makes a square to that Sun, Saturn, Poseidon thing. So with his chart in this particular combination, one of the things that we could look for is, one, he's a bit of a xenophobe, right? Because that's that Uranus in the 9th house in Cancer. He's all about my people, my tribe, my country. He doesn't like foreigners. Sorry, Americans who've got a, you know, Russia fetish. Like, he doesn't like you. Because you're not Russian. So he's very invested in his tribe, his people. He does not like outsiders. Now, with it squaring that Sun-Saturn conjunction in Libra, you're going to get somebody who is, well, a little unmanageable might be a good way to put it. So he's very self-controlled because Sun-Saturn is going to give you remarkable amounts of self-discipline. But that Uranus squaring it, that he is self-disciplined only as he makes the rules for himself. So he'll play by the rules, but he has to be the one making the rules. And if he's not the one making the rules, he is the one sabotaging the rules or breaking them. Ooh, what a character. Also, too, with Sun, Saturn, Uranus square like this, and the Moon in Gemini, because Moon in Gemini, they're a little mental anyway. I hate to say it, but they really are. They're mental in their own special way. I'm not going to say that he's crazy, but with the addition of Poseidon there as well, and Neptune, Yeah, Sun, Saturn, Neptune with Uranus and Poseidon. So one of the things that I would say is that in some ways, he's a visionary. So he has very strong, clear visions of where things could be, or how someone could be, or how a situation could evolve into. He has a very strong precognitive abilities, so he can see things before they happen. The problem is he may not necessarily always get the time right, right? Like Nostradamus saw a lot of stuff, but the stuff he saw was like how many hundreds and thousands of years after he died. So it could be the same thing where Putin has very clear visions of things, or these precognitive visions of things, you know, the potentials and stuff, or where things will end up eventually. But he may not necessarily understand how much time would be involved between the time he's seeing it and the time it actually comes into existence, right? So literally being, as they say, ahead of your time. Um, the problem with this is that with that Mercury of his in the 12th house, even though he's having these visions and he can see these things as clear as day, he may be so lost in his own head that he's basing decisions on the vision that he's seeing as opposed to the realities and the limitations, you know, that he will be working with for a long while before you can get there. That's not always a bad thing, but if you have somebody who does not have good advisors around them, or is a dictator who only has advisors that are alive, not murdered by him because they don't challenge him, if he has good advisors around him, then it's easier to keep in check and to make better decisions. But if he doesn't have good, strong advisors that can keep him from making really bizarre choices based on some vision he's had that may have been accurate, but well ahead of its time, and certainly not able to come into existence now, it could be problematic. It could be problematic. These Taurus Scorpio eclipses that we're dealing with all year long are pulling in his Jupiter and Venus. Okay, so one of the things that we can expect to see this year for him is a very strong motivation for acquisition of financial resources, right, or an increase in wealth. So he is going to be all in for trying to increase the financial the financial sturdiness of himself and or his country. Now, okay, so right now, Russia is pushing up on Ukraine's borders, right? And they're doing a lot of provocative action, like off of the coast of Cork, Ireland, with military exercises. I mean, they're just, that Mars and Sagittarius of his is literally trying to push his self, like interject himself in all sorts of places he's not wanting, just to see how far he can go and what he can get away with. Now, we know that Russia's a poor country and that gas is a major export for them. It's a very important source of revenue for the country. And their gas pipeline runs through Ukraine, services Europe. Um, Apparently, also, the United States is trying to lay down a gas pipeline in Ukraine to compete with Russia. So imagine that Russia is trying to take over Ukraine so that the United States cannot do that. That's where this is coming from. Um, Geez Louise, we've got to get off fossil fuels, but that's a whole other conversation. Okay, so this is where we're at. Okay, so what we're looking at right here in the video in your field of vision are lunar returns. So we did some solar return and lunar returns for the last couple of months to kind of see what's going on with him, right? So the first thing is over here. This is the lunar return for January 13th to February 9th. So this whole time period between those weeks is what this lunar return shows us as a snapshot of themes, major themes that are playing out. During this time, and right now as we speak, today is the 29th, 28th, yes, the 29th, Venus is getting ready to make its station direct. Now, Venus in this chart, in his lunar return, is at the very top of the chart, the midhaven, right? The public reputation, authority, leadership. He carries it in the lunar return retrograde, but it's literally retrograde coming to a station about to turn direct, which means major changes of circumstances and direction are happening as we speak. Hence, suddenly, as Venus slows down to get ready to turn around right now, because it'll turn direct in the next day or two, What does he do? He pops up on the Ukraine border and, this nonsense with Ireland and provoking them, trying to do military exercise off their coast. When Venus goes direct, which will be in a couple of days, this should absolutely make clear what his intentions are. Because remember, retrogrades tend to hide or minimize things. So there's a lot of stuff that we're not given information about. There's a lot of minimizing happening. Oh, no, it's not that serious. Oh, when Venus goes direct in the next 48 hours, right, or the next couple of days, we're going to see very, very clearly what this is about, because he will have laid his intentions out plain and bare at that point. The other thing that's happening is this lunar turn. Remember, this covers January to February, January 13th, February 9th. With this lunar turn, he's on a Mars return this month. Remember that Mars is all about domination, and Mars in his chart absolutely underscores every single ounce of his being. It's always about Mars for him. It's always about domination and conquering and competition and challenge. There can be only one. It's always about the Mars for him. And he's on a Mars return this month, or his lunar return Mars is back on his Mars, which means he's really feeling antsy and needing to stretch his legs and push his boundaries and assert himself. Cough it, cough it, cough it. Now, at the same time, we've got Uranus on the ascendant for this character this month. We've got a Sun-Pluto conjunction happening at the same time. We've got Mercury-Saturn conjunct. This particular month, from January until February 9th, right, we've got like another week of this to deal with, is literally him laying groundwork and testing. So this whole time period is a testing period for him. He's playing games. He's testing because he's laying groundwork for future actions. When we get down to February, which will take us from February 9th to March, 18th, like the middle of March. Sorry, glasses. March 9th, first week of March. So from February 9th to March 9th is here. Okay, well, now when we get down there, we're really going to be dealing with some stuff. I'm sorry, we won't be dealing with stuff, but there's definitely some important happenings in the world of Vladimir Putin. So the first thing is, in the time period between February 9th and March, it may actually be very quiet, March 9th. It may actually be very quiet on our end where dealing with him is concerned. One of the reasons is he's going to find that he's going to get some benefit or some lucky breaks during that time period, and also some allies to assist him. Now, Russia doesn't have a lot of allies, so we can only imagine where this is coming from. It's only a couple places this is possible. As this goes, strategic alliances and game planning. The game is on. Game planning is happening during this time. Also, I gotta work on these glasses. Yeah, so it, unfortunately for us, or maybe not unfortunately for us, I don't know. Oh, right. During this time, it actually looks like something is going to fall into his lap. He's going to have something rather brilliant fall into his lap. I'm not completely sure what that is. I'm not even sure I want to find out. But it will be mostly quiet. But don't think for a minute that this is him going away quietly. There's other things happening that are beneficial to him. So he is very quietly going on about his business and taking advantage of some really lucky breaks that are falling in his lap. When we get into March, March is a little bit more weird, right? So in the month of March, one of the things we can look for is, I hate to say it, but some confusion, as well as some missteps. Well, I don't hate to say it, but for him, there will be some confusion and missteps, and also overreach, a lot of overreach in the month of March. So he'll really be feeling himself by the time he gets to March, but it may end up working to his disadvantage. Also, with that particular month, he is going to have a very, he's going to have a very good time because his popularity should actually increase with his people. So he's not very popular now. I mean, you run around killing journalists and, the youth because you don't like the way they're living. Like, it tends to make people a little cranky. but his popularity will be very high in the month of March. So that will be interesting to see what all that's about. Now, here are the months that are big hotspot months and very active months that we need to be aware of him, and that is April to May and May to June. In April, it looks like his overreach and his ambitions and his assertiveness. He's talk about overstepping your bounds. He's really gonna be dipping his fingers and toes in all sorts of pots that doesn't belong, which could work to his disadvantage. There's also the very distinct possibility that poisons, here we go again, poisons and people trying to fly from the tops of buildings to concrete sidewalks beneath them and all sorts of shady, sinister things will be more active and associated with him than before. Um, This is a very heavily Mars month for him, so we can expect him to be very heavily active doing his classic Mars things, which is basically winning at all costs or attempting to win at all costs. So April to May are just right at the top of my head, April to May are dangerous months to be anywhere near this man or to cross paths with him. And the reason is because as we get into May to June, that is when all holy hell is going to break loose. So come May to June for this lunar return, one of the things I would look at is, again, missteps and misguided calculations. So I don't know what's going on with him. Somebody needs to get his girlfriend like under control. So from May to June, one of the things that I might look for is not only a feeling of depleted energy or feeling weak, which is not good. When you feel weak, you tend to overcompensate to appear strong. But also, he's got heavy, because Jupiter will have gone into Aries at that point, right? Heavy Mars Jupiter emphasis, strong and visible with him. So he may be feeling very weak and overcompensating to appear very strong and powerful, which of course is going to lead us into all manner of unnecessary and misguided conflicts. Unless somebody can get his girlfriend right or get him a new girlfriend or something. I don't know what the heck this is coming from, but that's what we're dealing with. So the big hotspots for this character are going to be from April to June, but May to June specifically is the month we need to be really aware that we could be dealing with a problem. And just to be sure I'm not like, overblowing this, I kind of did the solar return for him. So this solar return will cover the year from 2021, his birthday in 2021 to his birthday this year in 2022. So some of the things that are very important for him this year is that he is one in a growth year. So, little pen here. The moon is conjuncting the north node in his solar return for this 2021 to 2022. This year he is supposed to, well, not supposed to, let me put it this way. With the moon north node conjunction like this, he's going to be very actively, vigorously involved with all sorts of people from all walks of life in much more volume and quantity than normal. So if he normally operates on a very small scale, tight little circle of contacts, that's going to be blown wide open, and there's going to be all sorts of people in and out of his life this year, which should be interesting. Does anybody know how old his kids are? I think he's got at least one daughter. I'm wondering how old she is, because typically stuff like this happens when your children bring new people into your life. I'm just saying. Okay, so the other thing is that he's got Mars, again with the Mars, right? And Mercury and the moon all lying, literally piling up on top of that Sun, Saturn, Neptune, Mercury conjunction of his. So this year, heading into his birthday this year, believe it or not, a couple of things are happening. One, this is a time of reflection and reevaluation, so he is really examining his life and his role in the world and what he wants to do and what he has done, where he needs to go with all of this. And, trying to rectify and make good on something. So he's trying to correct something, or feeling the urge to correct something or redeem himself somehow as these things move forward. So that was going to be a very interesting thing. The other thing was that Mars crossing that Sun and Saturn, oh my gosh, and involving Mercury, he's feeling his age. He's not feeling like the young Zaddie he used to. He's feeling his age. So there's going to be a lot of concern and or insecurity about his vitality and his virility, and masculine power as he moves forward. So he's heading into the sunset of his life, and feeling it, really being aware of it. Now, this is important to us because anytime you're dealing with people, especially men, who've built their identities on getting stuff done, right? Their accomplishments, their legacies. When they reach the sunset of their life and start to reevaluate these things, this is the time when they look at what they have not accomplished or what they still need to do, and they make every effort possible to get that thing done. Because legacy, what they leave behind to show as testament to who they are, becomes extremely important. So Putin may be recognizing that it's going to be time soon for him to make a major change in his life, because his power and influence will not last forever. So he may be actively pile driving in now to make his legacy and make it stand, which could be good or it could be bad, depending on what he sees as his legacy or his gift to the people, and how he intends to go about doing that. But people who are in the last stages of accomplishment in their life like this, and remember, he already has the kind of commitment that he takes to the grave. The man is extremely disciplined and extremely committed when he decides to do something. So the most important thing we can ever find out right now, before we get too far into this year, is what he sees as his legacy for his people, what he wants his people to remember him for and by, and figure out a way to work with that, because he will, remember, all that heavy Mars in his chart, he will mow down everybody and everyone and everything if it's in his way, and he's at the last stage of the life, and now it's about establishing the final legacy to leave behind. He will not brook any interference from anyone. So yeah, that's pretty scary. That's very telling and pretty scary. I don't understand enough about geopolitics or what's going on with them and us, but I do know in terms of human nature, that's a scary combination, especially with a personality like this. So that doesn't mean it has to come to war. It does not have to come to war. We do not have to send our children off to go die for the profits of old people who will not send their own children to war with them. It does not have to go like that. If there was ever a time when Biden's diplomacy, he calls it diplomacy, some of us call it something else. If there was ever a time when Biden's diplomacy would be useful, now is that time. Understanding what it is that Putin wants to do, and what he sees as his legacy, what this thing is that is driving him, because it's not about immediate acquisition. This is about long-term legacy. Finding what that is and finding a way to build a bridge so that he can accomplish that and not send all of us into World War III would be awesome. Awesome. I would certainly appreciate it. So think positive thoughts. There is a way around it. And the beauty of astrology is it is a roadmap, and it allows us to plan and find alternate routes if the direction we're heading in is not the one we want. And for those of you who are interested, we touched on the charts of nations, specifically Russia, China, and Iran during the month of January 2020, because there's some activity there. And remember, these things don't start overnight. So they have long roots that go back in time. If you would like to watch that video and learn and listen about reading charts of nations, as I do, I'm not the ultimate authority, but I'm certainly willing to share what I know. The link for the video will be in the description box, and it will be at the end card following this. So with that said, my friends, thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed this video, please give me some feedback and hit the like button. If you'd like to get information about this video or different videos that are coming up, like the February horoscope coming up shortly, please hit the subscribe button. And if you know somebody who might enjoy this, absolutely share that with them. This has been Ms. Jenny, your astrologer. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.